And this week we're going to be talking about the soul trait of enthusiasm. And we're also going to be tying it into Passover, which is a great tie-in. As many of you may know, the Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim, which means
narrow place.
Narrow place, yes. And why is it called a narrow place?
I think it's because of our exodus from Egypt. That narrow walk that we made through the Red Sea.
That is a wonderful explanation. That's not the primary one that I've heard. Hadassah.
The Nile was a narrow place.
Nile was a narrow place, yes. It was also metaphorically narrow. In what way? As slaves.
The lives were very narrow.
Yeah, we had no choices. We could not go where we wanted to go. We could not control what we wanted to do or who we wanted to be. And so there's a whole, the Kabbalists had this whole metaphorical sort of spiritual liberation where we became free humans when we got out of slavery. So between those two themes, that's what we are going to be covering today. So let's just, as we normally do, just in the chat, in a word or two, tell me, how you're doing, what, either related to Passover or not. And again, apologies to those of you who are on the lives. I cannot see what you write, but I will comment on that later. And I would love to hear how you are doing as well. I haven't kind of mastered this multi-channel thing just yet.
I'll go. I mean, I've been doing actually surprisingly well amid the quarantine.
So Selena, I was asking for people to type in because we wouldn't have time for everybody to speak.
It's been interesting. I mean, having Pesach without more people, and people from congregation is really hard. That was really hard last night, but it went beautifully. We had a Seder for two. So we did the whole thing. We had the 4 cups of wine and all of the things that we're supposed to do and the prayers. So that's been going well. And also one of the things I wanted to point out that's helped me and may help other people is that I stay with a routine as much as I can through the day. And I start out early in the morning, and I have almost like I would be going to a workplace or school, and I have those things set out for me to do. I don't stay with it the whole day because I'm dealing with some medical conditions that keep me very fatigued. But for most of the day, I'm able to stay to a routine. So,
thank you,
and that's
Selena.
Enthusiasm for me.
Excellent. Well, I'm seeing a number of other people commenting, missing exercise, and it has been a long haul. It has been a while since we see other people. I took a walk around the block before this, and I was thinking, I haven't seen so many people like cross the street when I'm coming since I was like in New York City in the 80s, where everybody was just like, whoa, don't come near anybody, just cross the street. So that's a little, that's a little bit different. I'm in like a cozy little small town nestled in the Bay Area, and people are pretty friendly. So it's very, very different to just see people cross the street. I understand why they're doing it. They smile, they say hello, but it is a very different vibe. Okay, so thank you all for your comments, and you can read them. Now let's settle in and begin with a meditation. The reason why we call this a community gathering is it's to give us a chance to connect to other people. And it's a chance, we do this meditation to kind of create a sacred space and to allow us to kind of leave behind those stresses from the world and open us up to kind of more human to human communication. So let's all, and if you're new to meditation, this goes pretty quickly. So let's all just relax and close your eyes. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, as long as you're not driving, which you're probably not, you can also just close your eyes in your seat and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own speed, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, if thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. And Shema, we're listening deeply without judgment, without interrupting, without offering advice. In Shema, you're listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, friends, as we now get ready to start exploring the soul trait of enthusiasm, we always begin by looking at one of the 4 assumptions. So I am going to share my slides. Oh, you know what? Even before we get to the assumptions, last week, one of our members, Jack Zaffos, he was here and people were asking about the book of poetry he just published. So here is the information. It's called Lyrics from a Singing Stream, and I will share this information again at the end. Okay, so we've done our check-in. So the assumption that I want us to start with is that we all have free will, but it's not always accessible. As we're going to see, enthusiasm, a lot of it is about taking action. It's either beginning a task or completing a task. Both of them are important parts of enthusiasm. So to say that free will isn't always accessible, I think it's easiest for me to see, like, you know, sometimes I'm just really feeling sluggish, like it's just hard for me to kind of get going, or I know that something's important to do, but just for whatever reason, it's hard for me to get going. Also, I might lose my temper, and then some words come out of my mouth, you know, before I even had a chance to think about them. And I guess in theory, I had free will at that moment, but it sure didn't feel like it. So I would love to get some comments and reactions on this. Do you buy this concept about free will not being accessible? Do you think it's relevant, or how does that land for you?
Greg, can I just say that this is on slide 6 and it's not matching up with what you're talking about? Or should you be on slide 1?
Do other people not see the assumption slide?
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing how we how we do it matters. Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe explains. Is that the one you want to be on?
No,
Yes, that's slide
definitely
6.
not.
Slide 6.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you,
Let's try
Bonnie.
this
You're
again.
welcome.
I'm going to, because that, oh, this is interesting. All right, all right, we're gonna try this again. And now I'm hoping you will see a slide which looks a little more relevant.
The four assumptions for progress.
Yes.
I see it.
Okay, great. So given everything I said about free will and it not being accessible, I'm wondering how that lands for you.
I mean, I find that actually very relevant for me personally, because I have a chronic health condition that oftentimes, regardless of whether or not I want to be doing something, sometimes I just can't. And there's always kind of an internalized ableism that comes up there where I'm like, I really have to fight against judgments of myself as lazy when I really just don't have the ability to make those steps, you know.
Thank you, Andrea. I listen with an open heart. Yeah, feeling that kind of self-judgment when we can't do something. And I'm sure I saw some other nodding heads. Other thoughts, other ways this feels relevant or not relevant to you?
Well, it does to me too, in terms of much of what Andrea was saying, because my kind of medical conditions also preclude me from doing a great deal of what I want to do and have kept me from working now for quite some time. So it's very, very difficult for me to say, well, yes, I have free will to do this, that, or the other thing, but it can't always happen. And a lot of times before this quarantine and our Zooming that we're doing, I actually couldn't make it to various meetings and things. And now what I'm finding, and that's why I was so enthusiastic about this, because I now have socialization and intellectualization and many things going on all through Zooming. It's gotten really better and I can make most of these meetings. So that's good. But otherwise it's been very hard, very hard.
Thank you, Selena.
I have two thoughts about this. And one is that motivation plays a big part in this, about exercising free will. I believe it's there, but I'm struggling with motivation right now. And the other side of it is that there are times when I just try and try and try, and I feel like something is blocking me, that nothing is really working. No matter what I try, it doesn't seem to come to fruition. So that's kind of hard too. And that happens, and then it doesn't. And there's a period of time when it feels like nothing is happening, no matter what I try to do. And then there's a breakthrough. And so sometimes I feel like the universe is blocking me, and sometimes I feel like I'm blocking myself.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for sharing that.
I'd like to share what I see with this from my own perspective, of course, is when I have inertia and I'm not focused, then I have to step back and say that I'm in an unproductive state. and what has worked in the past for me to create a sharpness and a clarity. And for me, it's if I use my time to meditate. And if I do, and because I've been doing this for many years, if I do it for half an hour, let's say, I notice an incredible sharpness, a calmness, and a vision of clarity. And so different from the half an hour before I got started, which was I was drifting and I was ruminating and the mind was not clear and I was feeling like I didn't want to do anything. But I'm familiar with that. And because of the times that I know how to get out of it. And so that's what works for me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. So what I'm hearing you say is that you sort of can recognize sometimes when you're not accessing that free will, and a half an hour of meditation will bring you into a much sharper focus. You're able to then sort of do and actualize what you would like to be doing.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
I like to look at this free will from a different perspective. So there is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I look at it from a different perspective. So there is like my own internal process if I like to do something and I'm not doing it because of my own issue. But there is sometimes a reality that is imposed on me and or imposed on us. And when I look at the COVID or the idea that now, even though I have free will and I want to hang out with my friends, or I want to go and hike and enjoy the outdoors, and it's so beautiful out there now. I'm restricted to be there inside, and which means that I have free will to do, but the external reality is like the Mitzrayim, or the narrow, this narrowness that puts me in a place that I cannot move. And puts all of us in a place that there's this lockdown.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Is it Michal? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Michal, yeah.
Michal,
a lot of people call me Michelle, but in this group, I'm sure that a lot of people can say the cha.
Michal. Yeah, you bring up a very important distinction, because Mussar is an internal practice, and sometimes we have these external constraints, which if we're not honest about them, it can lead to kind of some of this ableism, or I should be able to do this anyway, sort of things that was brought up earlier. But if we accept those external constraints, then what it means to have free will, it's a very different kind of approach. Well, I think that's a very good segue to the next point, which is to start talking about enthusiasm. For those of you who know Hebrew, the Hebrew is zirazut. It can be translated as enthusiasm, energy, alacrity. And enthusiasm, it's not like the kind of rah, oh, everything's great. It's really about taking action. And it can be about taking action to begin tasks, or to complete tasks. And I heard people give a couple of examples when we were talking about the free will. Like someone was reading one of my, I think my Myers-Briggs personality trait, and it said, great at starting tasks, not so great at ending tasks. And my wife and kids are all like, yeah, that kind of sounds like you. So often when I'm focused on enthusiasm, I really think about like, okay, how do I run through the finish line here? How do I complete the tasks? May I have a volunteer to read this very bottom bullet that starts never say?
I'll read it because it really strikes me. It strikes a personal chord with me. Never say when I am free, I will study, for you may never be free.
Thank you. And what's the personal chord it strikes for you?
Well, I oftentimes say, oh, get to that when I can free up some time to do it. And that time never comes, and I wind up never doing the thing that's usually pretty important. So I think something else is getting in the way. I think that's an excuse.
Yeah, I just want to add it. So enthusiasm in like the way we look at it in Hebrew, we say itlahavut. And the word itlahavut, the root of the word itlahavut is lahav, lamed hey bet, which is lehava. It's like fire. It's like inner fire that is so like embedded in someone and imprinted in someone that, so when I'm free, I will study for you, may never be free. What does it mean if you have this inner fire in you? I'm just kind of having I'm questioning this in the light of this inner fire, that if somebody has it, what do they do with it actually?
Well, do we always have the inner fire?
The question is when we have it, and sometimes we have it and we still don't follow through, right? It's two different ways. It's easier when you have it, when you can connect to it, but also sometimes when you connect to it, you don't follow through.
I don't think we always have it, but I think that if we can tap into it from time to time, that is can be very productive and very satisfying. And I like what Mikhail said about the inner fire and the Hebrew. That's fascinating to me. I'd like to know more about that.
So the word for fire is lehava. So lehava is actually the, it's when you carry a torch, there is lehava. It's the fire that goes out of a torch, is big. Or in Hanukkah, we say that there is lehava of the candles, is huge. When you see all the candles together, it's a very, very strong fire. So very good. So think when you have this in itlahavut, it's like a wow.
Yeah, we're going to actually look at some readings about this sort of inner fire a little bit later. So it's interesting, as usual. You guys are way ahead of where I am. Other people who relate to this kind of when I'm free, I will study idea, how might that show up in your life?
So last year, I took my son on a lot of college tours, and we see this in a lot of things. I think enthusiasm is contagious. So the students who gave the tours, who were just like, oh, I love this, come, you must see. I did this, I had so much fun when you come to school here, on, and other people like, over here is the library, and over here is the dorm. So whatever you do, if you bring energy to it, it's contagious and it motivates other people.
Yeah. Thank you, Leslie. So sometimes there can be an element about motivating others, psyching ourselves up to motivate ourselves to do things. What kind of a phrase is when I'm free, I will study? Like, what is that?
It's one that's calling me out very harshly. I feel like that's something that happens a lot in our society in general. You know, we're very busy doing urgent things, but find a hard time prioritizing the things that are important for us. So a lot of time, the way we spend our time doesn't really reflect what we value most. It more reflects kind of what is either urgent or easy. I find a lot of my friends and I, we've been attempting to use this time period to kind of refocus and think about, you know, how we're spending our time, you know, actually crack open that to be read pile instead of scrolling through Facebook again, or, you know, pick up a new hobby. And a lot of us are really kind of being taken aback by how we just kind of kept pushing these things that we say are really important, that we're very excited about doing, just later and later and later, until later was just not happening. I think we do that a lot.
Studying involves slowing down. You have to slow down and pay attention to study. That's kind of wrapped up in that word. And so much of our modern world insists we don't slow down. So it's hard to slow down.
I have found that with this quarantine, as I may have said earlier, I can't remember now, but is that I've wanted to do Torah study intensely for a long time. And it's exactly what this Pirkei Avot statement is saying: when I am free, I will study, and then for you may never be free. Well, now we're relatively free, and I find that I am doing my Torah study. I'm sticking to it, and it's very satisfying, and I feel really good about it, as opposed to before, when I really was a hallmark of this statement was a hallmark of my life. You know, when I am free, well, I'm not always going to be free. So, but
yeah,
now
there's a lot of things that go into this, and now, you know, a number of us are more free. You know, Selena, you're freed by the technology access, but also, as Andrew was pointing out, sometimes we're free, and it's like, wow, it's still hard to do these things. And it strikes me that one of the general lessons from this is about rationalization, and how, you know, it's so easy to kind of get into rationalizations and that kind of stuff, that it really can cause, it really can be hard to get towards what's important. And as Carol was saying, kind of slowing down, focusing, really trying to concentrate on what's important to you, those can be some of the keys towards taking action.
Greg?
So now we got to have, of course, a little, yeah, Bonnie?
I would also add, it's a lot about, I also sense a little, don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. Living in the present more and not waiting. If you look at the verbs in there, there's, you know, the present am, and there's the future will study. When I am free, I will study. And I think there's something of that also. Just live more in the present and do what you need to do in the present. Don't put it off.
Yes. That's a good segue to this next quote. Maybe someone we haven't heard from yet. Could you read this, please? Someone
Okay, I will. I can do it. The sages of blessed memory exhorted us, and you shall watch over the matzot. If a mitzvah comes to your hand, do not delay its performance. Literally, allow it to become a chametz.
Thank you, Carol. So there's this teaching that when you're making matzah, it has to go in the oven within 18 minutes of the water being added, and you have to really watch it. And so it very much has this quality, like Bonnie was talking about, okay, we gotta we gotta get on it when we're making matzah. We can't take a phone call. We can't, take a break and chat. Like, we really have to kind of get things done. So what's the general principle that's being suggested here?
Well, I know from my own experience, we get announcements from the synagogue about people who have passed away or a new birth. And if right away I go out and buy the card or have the card ready and I write a nice note, it gets done. But if I say, oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow, then those cards rarely get sent, because then tomorrow becomes the day after. And then it's like, oh, it's been so long. It's kind of embarrassing to send it now. And the same thing if somebody mentions a charity they're involved in, and you're going to, you know, write a check or go online to the PayPal. If I do it right away, it gets done. And if I wait till tomorrow, I'll say, well, it's for the dog charity, but I kind of like cats better. So I'll, yeah. Anyway, so for me, if I just get right on it, it gets done. And if I wait a day, then I come up with an excuse.
Then the rationalizations start to set in. And that's thank you. That's a great example. Thank you for
I like the right on that Leslie talked about. The right on, it's like in the here and now. It's in the present, and the same with making the matzah. We have to be present, and if we're not present, we miss the opportunity.
Yes.
And missing is chametz. Lachmitz is to miss.
Yeah. Wow. There we go. It's kind of like fan craze, and everybody wanted tickets to go see Hamilton. You know, you couldn't get tickets, or, you know, to some event you really want to go to. And suddenly, like, someone says, hey, there's Hamilton tickets available right now. You can jump on it and get it done. But if you delay, that opportunity can be lost and will be lost. And part of it is what I'm hearing is that we get these rationalizations that can come up. And also what Michal was saying, I really like that about being, it's like if we're not in this floating place, then we can be by Facebooks and all this other stuff, which isn't important. The focus and present, you know, getting my mother's birthday card out really is more important than, you know, checking my news feed, or, you know, just getting that desk cleaned off is really, you know, not the most fun, but it is actually going to make my life a lot better. Okay, so let's, as we're getting ready for our pair study, let's take a look at the spectrum of enthusiasm, because with all soul traits, having too little can be just as bad as having too much. So if we have too little enthusiasm,
well, with too little enthusiasm, we get nothing done, or virtually nothing done. There's kind of, as you point out, you use the two words slothful and lazy. I mean, those are value judgments in a sense, but also it can mean nothing happens. We don't move forward. There's so many hours in the day. There's so many hours in a week. And when we just let them go by, then very little can happen, as opposed to the too much and your concept of frantic busyness, which really we can go overboard if we're, you know, plugged in that direction. So like you point out, Greg, in all of your soul traits that you draw these diagrams, it's somewhere in the middle is where we want to be, between those two poles.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Other thoughts or thoughts about how the spectrum sort of shows up in your life? Anyone care to share an insight?
Well, I do get on the too much side of the spectrum myself. I feel like I have 100 balls in the air all the time, and I'm always chasing myself around the corner, and I almost can't get all the way through any one project because I have to complete, you know, all 5 of them by the end of this hour or something. So that is not necessarily the end you want to be on either.
Sounds like.
And the frantic busyness can lead to sloppiness for one thing.
Yes.
And it can also lead to thoughtlessness. You do things without thinking because you're trying to do them so quickly or pack so much in. So
Yeah.
I've been trying to pare back on that, multitask less.
It can also
projects.
It can also result in you getting so excited about something, you run right over other people, you don't listen to them, you don't take time for them, and you hurt people in the process. Enthusiasm can be catching, you know, people can catch fire with it, but it can also be, well, you can get burned by it, I guess is the best.
Yeah.
Worse yet, burn other people.
Great insight, Carol. Yeah, if we're not bringing people along, this is for me the greatest idea in the world, and yeah, I'm going to do this, but everyone else thinks it's a terrible idea or it's not practical. And if I'm like pushing and pushing and pushing, then, you know, that's all kinds of people can get singed along the way.
Yeah, that reminds me of like humility about taking up too much space. There's the quote. So when you have too much enthusiasm, you're taking up too much space and your bubble doesn't allow other people's bubbles to float along too.
Thank you, Leslie. Great time there. Absolutely. How does this mantra, make the most of each moment, how does that tie into what we've been talking about?
Well, to have enthusiasm for the moment, to experience the moment and to relish each moment, to try to achieve that. Not every moment's going to be wonderful, obviously, but to relish the time that we have and to know that life is finite. And so we have only so much time. And I tend to think about it that way. So that makes sense.
Yeah, we only have so much time, making the most of it. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? To me, it brings up a little bit what Michal was talking about too, which is staying present. You know, is instead of just sort of sitting around, you know, moping on the couch and reading, you know, more COVID statistics, or instead, running around, you know, clicking through a gazillion posts on Facebook, you know, being present and centered and saying, you know, what is it that I can do right now which could actually bring joy to myself, some joy to other people, do something that's kind of important and meaningful as opposed to just skating along. Okay, so now it is time for us to... Oh, yes, absolutely.
Who, me, Ken?
Someone said, can I say something?
Yeah.
I didn't hear who that was. Was that you?
It's me, Greg. Hi, it's Ken. Thank you. Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
Ken.
Hi, I just have a few thoughts on this, and I think everybody's input has been absolutely fantastic. I love that about the analogy of the fire within. I'd never heard that before, about enthusiasm being the fire within. Some of the points that I've been sort of writing things down to see if I could share this, because it might be very appropriate for other people as it has been or is for me. Sometimes if you have like 10 or 20 things or whatever the number is of things you want to accomplish throughout the day, and we get distracted or something comes up or things like that, and you put this off saying, I'll get it done later on. And then what happens is like the afternoon comes, and then all of a sudden you have all these things that you wanted to get accomplished like in the morning or during the day. All of a sudden, like you use the word, you know, you get overwhelmed towards later in the day when you talk about all the balls to be balanced and things like that. And one thing that I heard some time ago, and it's really true, there's such a difference between being busy or busyness versus productivity. So many people are very, very busy doing things, and yet it's not a matter of being productive or accomplishing what's important. And one of my favorite sayings that I came up with long ago, and I think it's an important one, is what matters most matters most. And It's simple and yet very profound. And I think that applies to a lot of people. And one last thing I wanted to share, this happened for me yesterday. You know, we learn so much about ourselves being in this shutdown type of situation where we're locked in, you know, versus productivity, or we can do things for, you know, self or for others, or things like we've been wanting to do, the idea of study or whatever it might be. It's up to us what gets done. And sometimes when it's not getting done, it gets, I think, more and more frustrating. And I've gone through the ups and downs where I'm really feeling productive and really feeling energetic. And sometimes I'm feeling really sluggish and disappointed, and actually depressed, thinking I'm not getting done what I really want or need to get done. One thing happened yesterday, and I wanted to share this, and I'll drop the microphone. And that is towards the, just before the Seder last night. And I was feeling sluggish because so much I wanted to get accomplished, and I felt like it wasn't getting done. And then the Seder was coming up, and my energy was down. So much is it's so much to be said about energy with the enthusiasm. And people have different energies. That's one thing I wrote down that's so important. I could be extremely enthusiastic about something.
Hey, Ken, I want to just be respectful to everyone's time. So I don't know if you could just maybe share your story. I love hearing this, but I want to make sure that we have time for everybody.
Okay, 15 seconds. Okay. Everybody's energy is different. When somebody's very enthusiastic, doesn't mean that the other person's going to be very enthusiastic. And it's really a different type of thing. But what happened yesterday was I put on some music. I'm very much affected by music, and I put on some what I call upper music to feel good. And I grabbed an exercise band and started exercising. And in 15 minutes, my feeling was so totally different and alive, period.
Oh, thank you, Ken. That's music and exercise are wonderful ways to kind of get ourselves going again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we're going to split up into our pairs to kind of have a check-in where you are. And to frame the discussion, we want to come back to this idea that about Mitzrayim, which is this narrow place. And it could be like, where am I stuck? Like, yeah, I'm stuck at home, but where am I really stuck? You know, when I can't, like, when I don't have all these other distractions around me and I really come face to face, you know, where am I stuck? And as the Rabbi Nachman of Breslov said, the exodus from Egypt occurs in every human being, in every era, and every year, and in every day. So with your partner, you know, again, in our confidential safe space, maybe share a little bit about what's the personal narrow place where you are looking to escape from. So I am going to end the share and split everyone up into breakout rooms. Okay, so now you should get something on your screen which says, you know, which gives you an opportunity to join a room. So just kind of click join. All right, everybody is joining. Almost everybody has joined here. Zahara, are you going to be able to join? Well, if not, that is okay. That is not a problem. And for everyone who is left, I'm going to switch us to speaker view because I have my hidden teaching. So if you're on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, we are going to actually look at another text. And I am going to just share the screen real briefly again to show you what that text is. And this is a teaching from the Alter of Novardok. He was one of the Mussar masters of the 19th century. And what he wrote, oops, what is going on in breakout room 7? I'm going to have to put that off for later. Okay, so what I am hoping is that you can see this quote is that it says that a person can completely change in one moment. And the ability is not, why do I have a feeling that that is not showing what I wanted to show?
Hi.
Okay.
I didn't
Yeah,
have anyone in my breakout room.
you did not. Okay. Let me stop the share and let me send you to another room.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, you should have a new room to join.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, everyone.
This is actually a room that I was before. There was nobody there.
You sure?
Yeah.
I had you move to breakout room 3. There are 2 people there.
Oh. Okay.
So give it a click.
Okay. Oh, I cannot give it a click.
Huh. All right, let's try this one. Great. Okay, so we're going to go back to the hidden teaching. And in this hidden teaching, yes, this should be correct. So there's this idea that this rabbi is saying is that a person can completely change in a moment. You know, it's not something just for like the super pious or the super aware. And if a person can change, when will they change? And why not right now? And why even try to wait for all the worries and the other issues to go away that we've talked about? So, you know, there's this, and as it says in bold, there's this interesting idea. Well, there comes a time when you have to decide and make a break with the past. So let it be right now. So that's something I think we should all think about, because I think this is something that's really easy to say, hey, just kind of do it and just go ahead and make it happen. And there are some spiritual teachers who teach that way, like Eckhart Tolle, who's one of my favorite authors and one of my inspirations. He said that he was in a deep depression and he just suddenly sort of had this moment of enlightenment where he realized, hey, you know, things are pretty, you know, things can be okay, but I don't need to dwell on all these negative things. And he changed in a moment, and he trains people and teaches people how to make that sort of change. But I personally think that's a bit of an exception. And I think that, you know, if you say, well, if I can't change all in this moment, I think that can be too high a bar for some people. And that can lead to kind of self-judgments and self-esteem issues and shame, which can actually make it harder to make those changes. Especially if you know, because we all have baggage and things that are holding us back. You know, if someone has experienced some childhood trauma, either with like a capital T or with a small t, whether it was a yelling parent or a parent who was physically abusive, that can create programs and tapes that run in our head, which just don't go away. And sometimes we need either professional help to make those changes, or we need just a gradual spiritual practice like Mussar, where we will continue to make changes over time, where we make small incremental changes. And that's the way that I like to operate. When I was a workaholic, I was working 90 hours a week. I couldn't stop working on a dime. And I used to coach people who tried to do that. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop at 5 o'clock. And that was a disaster. It caused a huge amount of change. But what I was able to do, and the one thing I was able to do in a moment, is I decided that I'd had enough. And I decided I was going to change. And when I made that decision, I instituted a series of small, gradual changes in order to bring that about. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to close the breakout rooms so that people can start to come back, because I do want to get to the teaching about, I want to hear from everybody, and then I wanted to talk about this issue of the inner flame, which had come out before. Once again, people are taking their time coming back, which I think is wonderful. That means that these were meaningful discussions and conversations that were taking place. But I want you to think about, your own experience with change. Are you like a cold turkey kind of person where I'm just going to stop, I'm just going to change on a dime? Or are you the kind of person that needs to do things a little bit more gradually, and that you can sort of gradually make changes in your life? We're starting to see people come back. Hello, Selena and Carol. We're going to see everybody else in about 2 seconds. And boom, here they are. Welcome back. So I was just talking, and if you go back and watch the recording, you can see my comments on this. But there was a quote from a rabbi who said that people can just change in a moment, and I'm a little bit skeptical about that. But I'd love to kind of hear, how was your conversation? And from what you talked about, do you think that we can just snap our fingers and liberate ourselves from a personal Mitzrayim?
I don't think it's as easy as snapping our fingers. But I think Carol and I had a very good talk.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, Ken?
Yeah, hi, Greg. Yeah, I mean, I've heard the saying long ago that a transformation can happen in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, whatever that might mean for somebody. I had a wonderful conversation with Andrea, and each and every week it's been wonderful with each partner. But we're talking about one thing that's important for, I think, everybody. It's an important issue, and that's sleep. With what's going on today, I think people have this anxiety, this stress, this worry, this fear that we think about 24/7, perhaps. Maybe meditation's a good help, but that might be an issue for people where it's really hard getting good sleep from beginning to end each night, where you're feeling refreshed. And that might be something that we can talk about. And it might be very helpful and beneficial for everybody.
Thank you, Ken.
One thing I wanted to say, another thing actually I wanted to say, is Carol and I both had in common that we're doing meditation. And we find that very, very helpful, like she was talking about earlier. And I too find that the clarity from that after 20 minutes of meditation, I'm not touting one over the other. I happen to do TM. I was trained in that when I was like 18, 19. So I still do that. And the clarity I get, it is really wonderful. I mean, set my whole day on a course that's much better than without it. And another thing she was saying, I don't want to take away from anything she's going to say, but that I found very interesting is that without it, she finds that the same kind of thing happens, that she has, it's amazing what it can do and the wonders of that, and just being able to quiet the mind and focus on it.
Thank you, Selena.
Sure.
Yeah, that came up in our conversation too. And I think part of the real value of meditation, and this is coming from someone who doesn't do it nearly as often as she should, is that it can really help us bring out whatever is troubling us on a subconscious level, because a lot of times, you know, our Mitzrayim, our narrow places are places that we are not looking at what we're thinking and feeling because they're distressing. And a meditative practice, as well as other different practices, can really help actually open that up for you. Yeah.
That's wonderful. If we're not willing to kind of look at the walls of our narrow place, then we're going to keep wandering around. But yeah, I think that's a wonderful point, that a meditative practice is one tool where, well, we start to meditate and all these thoughts and all these things start coming up, and paying attention to those. It's like, wow, I remember when I first started taking yoga 20 years ago, one of the first like Shavasana meditations, like all these thoughts came in my head. And I'm like, wow, I'm really upset because someone I knew was getting divorced. And I just that was not like at all on my mind. And I realized just how much that was bothering me. And when I knew that, it gave me tools to deal with it. All right, we have just a couple of minutes left, and I promised to say something about this idea of this inner flame that came up. I am going to share. Okay, this was from the hidden teaching. We're going to do a visualization, and I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to relax into a meditation. So this was from Moshe Chaim Luzzatto in Path of the Just, incredible Mussar book, where he wrote that just as enthusiasm can result from an inner burning, so can it create one. That is, one who perceives a quickening of their outer movements conditions themselves to experience a flaming inner movement. So what was he talking about there? What does it mean to condition yourself to, what is he talking about here?
To me, this sounds like the positive psychology description of flow. Some people, I would say it's the presence of God, where the inner and the outer are just on the same page, and you're this harmonious wheel within a wheel, way in the middle of the air.
Yeah, thank you. So flow is a great descriptor of this coming together of the inner and the outer. What does it mean? What are outer movements? It's taking action, right? And this is one of the key ideas of Mussar, is that when we take action, we change our inner world. So that's something which is, if there are any psychologists on the call or cognitive behavioral psychologists, this is something which, you know, an idea hundreds of years old, thousands of years old, has actually been shown and reinforced by current neuroscience and psychology. So what I'd like you to do for our closing meditation is once again close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the mouth and hold. And exhale and hold once again. As you breathe at your own pace, listen again to this quote and allow your mind to develop visual images that match what I describe. Just as enthusiasm can result from an inner burning, so can it create one. That is, one who perceives a quickening of his outer movements conditions himself to experience a flaming inner movement. See yourself taking action to help liberate yourself from your personal Mitzrayim? What is one action that you can take? Is it a conversation? Is it writing in your journal? Is it making a phone call? Is it picking something up? When Moses saw the burning bush, he saw a flame that burned but did not consume. Moses was given access to a plane of reality that maybe all of us could see. What if we were all covered with a flame that burned but does not consume? See yourself taking strong, decisive, thoughtful, and considered action, powered by this flame that burns but does not consume. Let this flame support you with courage and strength and understanding to take a look at that narrow place. And as the pillar of fire led our ancestors, let it lead you to personal liberation. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. I want to thank you so much for being here with us again this week, whether you are participated in the Zoom or whether you were on Facebook Live or YouTube Live or you're watching the recording. If you would like to be on my email list to get the weekly blog post that goes with these, you can sign up at AmericanMussar.com. And I do want to once again share the book from Jack, who was here, which came up last week. There was people who asked about it. He just published a book of poetry called Lyrics from a Singing Stream. I will put this also in the chat for the meeting if anyone would like some reading. Okay, need to stop that. And here is the link. Well, I wish you all a wonderful evening and a wonderful remainder of the Passover experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.